On Tuesday night, November 6th, we had session 9 of Bible Study for Everybody. I wanted to thank Jim again for the great presentation on differences between Islam and Christianity that he did last week. And wanted to thank Linda Zazula and Sandy Carey, who came up. The two of them came up with the brilliant idea of Linda making a speed run to McDonald's to get warm chocolate chip cookies, which were greatly appreciated. We then had a little bit of review from last week. I've already mentioned the comparison between Christianity and Islam that Jim had done the week before. And the week before that, we had an unfortunate technological problem and went to an unplanned review of Mark chapter 1, which we had a short review of last night. Some of the things we talked about were that these Gospels were not oral traditions. An oral tradition is the kind of thing that's passed down from generation to generation and then finally gets written down. Rather, these Gospels were oral history, written down from eyewitness accounts and the eyewitnesses were still active in their communities and alive when these were written down. We also talked about the idea that the Gospels are a little too counterproductive to be legends, because if you were writing a legend, it would be all cleaned up and neatly packaged, whereas the Gospels are full of instances of apostles' failure. For example, Peter denied Jesus. Who would know all those details, and who would write them down if you were going to write a legend that would become the basis for faith? Mark was the secretary and translator for Peter, and it is believed that everything that Mark wrote down came from Peter, and in fact, Peter was the guy who would be able to talk about his denying Christ and the subsequent things that happened. In fact, in the book of Mark, Peter is the most mentioned apostle, more than in any other gospel, and Peter is present for everything that Mark relates in the gospel. Mark immediately introduced Jesus as the Son of God, quoting from the prophets Isaiah and Malachi, and saying that John was the forerunner to the arrival of the Messiah. Jesus was baptized by Mark, and when he came up out of the water, the Holy Spirit fluttered over him like a dove, and God said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased," which is a kind of a tie to the beginning of creation, when the Spirit fluttered over the water, and God spoke the world into existence in the Word, through the Word, and the Word was Christ. Following the baptism, Jesus immediately went into the desert, immediately into battle with Satan. Mark treats Satan as very real, and in fact, the connection is that we will experience reality as a battle. We are faced with a battle, as Paul wrote, of spirits. And Jesus in the desert was faced with the decision whether to protect himself, become self-centered, or trust the Father. And he chose to trust the Father. He then began to call his disciples and began his ministry. He taught with authority. Authority, the word for authority is the same, came from the same root as the word for author, which means to come out of original stuff, or to build out of original stuff, tell out of original stuff. Jesus taught with authority, he cleansed demons, and he healed. Then this week we broke into small groups. I had the technology fixed, and we watched Max McLean recite from memory the first 2 chapters of the book of Mark. Those videos are on the website and are below this video if you're looking at it. And so we saw Mark 1 and 2 that you see there, and then we had a worksheet with questionnaires, which is also here present on the website. You can click on it right below this video. And we broke into small groups, and everyone worked on those questions from the 2nd chapter of Mark. Then we gathered back together for a large group discussion of them. And we had, at the completion of the evening, a brief survey about the Bible study and dismissed with prayer. So next week we will talk about Mark chapter 3. You're invited to come, bring someone to join us. There's room for more, and we would love having you. Thank you very much. God bless.